Oh, hello there. I'm Patrick Watson. I'm an astrologer, and you're watching Big Fat Astrovlog. Why do the planets mean what they do in astrology? Why is Venus the planet of love and Mars the planet of war? Why isn't Mercury the planet of love and Jupiter the planet of war? How do we know what qualities go with each planet? I've never really seen a good answer to this question until I sort of came up with one. The Western astrological tradition's primary ancestor is Babylonian omen astrology, and those astrologers were the first people to assign particular natures to the planets. And it appears that at least three occasionally interrelated forces are at work in determining the natures of the planets. 1. Empirical observation of what happened around the time of a given celestial phenomena. Mars got bright in the sky and McCallagher done died. 2. Symbolic associations between the literal appearance of the planet and certain emotions or material things. Mars appears red, the color of fire, blood, anger, passion. 3. Associating the apparent character of a planet with a corresponding deity. Hey, this red planet seems to be bad news. Sort of like Nergal. Hey, let's call it Nergal. We still basically do this today, except in our own modern way. We still have empirical observation, but now we have computers and astrology software and a long-ass record of history. Bleep bleep, Jupiter was here when I did a thing. Bleep 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 bleep. And we still make symbolic associations between the appearance and behavior of planets, except now they're based more on the discoveries of modern astronomy. For example, Saturn's prominent rings evoke Saturn's reputation for limits and strictures. Jupiter's mass is so large that its gravity protects our planet from stray meteors and asteroids, evoking Jupiter's reputation as a good guy who bails you out. And the eccentricity of Uranus's orbit is sort of like the rebellious or revolutionary nature of the planet Uranus, rolling around the zodiac, unlike the other planets which just tend to spin regularly. And we still associate the characters of planets with some corresponding deity. Greek and Roman mythology remain a pretty useful shorthand or archetypal reference for planetary natures. I mean, some Venus transits definitely remind me that Venus is technically the foam of the severed nuts of Uranus, according to Greek mythology. Still, it bothers me that the meanings of the planets rely on such a large degree of symbolic inference, however well established. Are there alternatives? I believe there could be. Before the planets got their specific natures, they had general ones. The primary qualities assigned to a planet is whether or not it belongs to the day or to the night, and whether it is good or bad, or benefic or malefic. And I think there's an astronomical reason why certain planets would be considered good or bad, or at least why they'd be grouped together like this, and it has to do with the way their cycles interact with each other. Since Babylonian times, astrologers have been aware of planetary periods, periods of time which correspond to when a planet's conjunction with the sun takes place in the same part of the zodiac. So, for example, Mercury conjoins the sun close to the same degree every 20 years, close to the day. Venus conjoins the sun close to the same degree every 8 years, fairly precisely. Mars takes 15 years, Jupiter takes 12 years, Saturn takes about 30 years. So take Venus and Jupiter for example. They're the benefics, the good doers, the good guys. Venus is 8 years, and Jupiter is 12 years. So after 24 years, Venus and Jupiter return to the same positions in the zodiac relative to the sun. Their cycles don't match up with any of the other planets first. The first planet they match up with is each other. So maybe they're a team. And to match up with each other, they have to work cooperatively. Venus gives 3 of its cycles, while Jupiter gives 2. There's cooperation, reciprocation, there's mutual benefit. And these are the benefics. Get it? Now let's take a look at the malefics. Mars is 15 years and Saturn is 30 years, which means that 2 Mars periods equals 1 Saturn period. Their cycles don't match up with any other planets first. So just like Venus and Jupiter, they're kind of a pair, but they interact fairly differently. Saturn only gives 1 of its periods, while Mars has to give 2. So in comparison to the cooperative relationship between Venus and Jupiter, Mars and Saturn have a more harsh, hierarchical relationship. Saturn's the leader, Mars is the follower. Saturn's the general, Mars is the soldiers. And Mars and Saturn aren't considered to be nice guys. Now what's interesting about Mercury is that it's all over the place. Mercury's 20-year period matches up with Venus at 40 years, and at 60 years it matches up very roughly with Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Meanwhile, an 8-year Venus period added to a 12-year Jupiter period add up to a 20-year Mercury period. So, no wonder that Mercury has traditionally had an ambiguous malefic-benefic status, kind of neutral. So through some very elementary math and a minor amount of symbolic inference, we can tell why Venus and Jupiter are on a team and consider good guys, and why Mars and Saturn are on a team and consider bad guys, and why Mercury is not really on either team. But what about the differences between the planet in each pair? So we have day and night teams. They're each led by the lights. We have the sun on the day team because duh, and we have the moon on the night team because, oh my god, do I even have to explain why? Then we have our benefics. Jupiter is on the day team because it's the greater benefic with the greater light. It has the larger planetary period between the two benefics, so it goes to the day. And then we have Venus on the night team because it's the lesser benefic with the lesser light. It is the smaller planetary period between the benefics. Then we have our malefics. Saturn is on the day team because it's the greater malefic with the greater light. And we have Mars on the night team because it's the lesser malefic with the lesser light. And then we have our neutral planet, which is Mercury. So now you're probably asking, okay, Patrick, this is good and fine and dandy for the, traditional 7 planets, but what about Uranus and Neptune? Where could they fit into this schema? Well, I think they deserve their own category. Welcome to the Transcendentals. And if I had to choose, I think Uranus would have to be considered a day planet and Neptune a night planet. Uranus is the planet of awakenings and Neptune is associated with dreams, so you do the math. Uranus has an orbital period of 84 years, while Neptune has an orbital period of 165 years, so Uranus's period is roughly half that of Neptune's. So this is actually kind of interesting just from a trans perspective, because it means that however far Uranus has traveled, Neptune has traveled half as far. So, when someone's having a Uranus opposition at age 42, that's also fairly close to the age someone's having a Neptune square Neptune transit. And then at a Uranus return, someone's usually having a Neptune opposition at the same time. So this 2-to-1 ratio between Uranus and Neptune would suggest a similar relationship in nature as Mars and Saturn. But it's a bit more complicated than that. Uranus and Neptune individually have mathematical connections to other planets. Jupiter's 12-year minor period doesn't feature a perfect return to the degree, just the zodiacal sign. The remainder adds up to a year after 7 iterations, resulting in a very close Jupiter return by degree after 83 years to the day. After 83 years, Uranus is very close to having made a full return. So, aside from Neptune, Uranus has a closer orbital relationship with Jupiter than any other planet. Mars's 15-year period doesn't feature a perfect return to the zodiacal sign and degree either. Every 15 years, Mars's position relative to the Sun will precess several degrees backward through the zodiac, which in just a few decades exhausts its usefulness in predicting its general position. However, if you count by Mars's conjunctions with the Sun, then after 11 Mars periods, 164 years have passed, and Neptune is very close to having made a full return. So aside from Uranus, Neptune has a closer relationship with Mars than any other planet. It's interesting that Uranus and Neptune match up with Jupiter and Mars because they're opposite by sect and nature. Jupiter is a day planet and greater benefic, while Mars is a night planet and lesser malefic. This suggests natures for Uranus and Neptune that transcend common notions of good and bad and day and night. This is in apparent accordance with modern astrological accounts of Uranus and Neptune, which reference the planet's revolutionary traits, for better and worse. What about Pluto, you ask? How do we apply this to Pluto, a so-called dwarf planet? So Pluto has an orbital period of 248 years, and this is very close to the sum of Uranus's 84 years and Neptune's 165 years. Closer, in fact, than the sum of 3 Uranus periods altogether. So this suggests that Pluto is a combination of the transcendentally individualist and collectivist qualities of Uranus and Neptune, a kind of super transcendental, or perhaps a neutral transcendental. Now, what about other minor bodies like Ceres? I'm not exactly a Ceres kind of guy, but if we were to give Ceres a planetary period, it would probably be 23. Ceres has 18 recurring conjunctions and oppositions in similar parts of the zodiac over a period of 23 years, almost to the day. Multiples of 23 years do not fit easily into any multiple of the synodic period of any other planet, nor can it be divided evenly into a multiple of another shorter planetary period. It can, however, be divided between two different planetary periods. Venus is 8 years and Mars is 15 years, adds up to 23 years. This would suggest that the astrological nature of Ceres would be some combination of Venus and Mars, with benefic and malefic qualities. However, since Venus and Mars are both nocturnal planets, perhaps Ceres could also be considered nocturnal. However, more empirical observation needs to be done on Ceres in transit, since many contemporary interpretations seem to rely pretty heavily on the mythology of Ceres. So yeah, this is my theory for how people decided the planets were benefic or malefic. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you like the show, please comment, please share, please subscribe to my channel. I'll be releasing videos every weekish. And if you're super awesome, please support my poor ass on my Patreon with a measly $1. And I also have a new 2-hour ZR lecture, a lecture on zodiacal releasing from the Lots of Fortune Spirit. It is a video lecture, so that costs $15, and I tell you all about how to do it with tons of examples and how to apply it to your chart. Please check that out. It's on my website, www.bigfatastro.com/products. It's on my products tab. It's right there. Buy it. Buy. And I'll put the link in the description as well. Bye. So, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Do you think you'd buy Big Fat Astro mugs? Like, if I made some Big Fat Astro mugs with my logo on them and stuff, would you buy them? Because you're a capitalist consumerist drone? Would you buy?